It's always fun to look back at the end of the year and see what things you did and what things you liked and what new things you tried. A lot of people are going to be going to the gym. A lot of people are going to be trying to better themselves as the new year begins, as 2026 kicks off. Wow, that sounds crazy to say out loud. But us movie heads know the real joy of the year ending and a new one beginning is that we get to make end of year lists.
My review of it is 4 bags of popcorn.
We get to look at the top 5, top 10, top 50, top 100. What are you, crazy? Movies that we saw over the year. I already made a list of my top movies of 2025. I think it was a great year for movies. I think it was really exciting. We got to see a lot of people do a lot of cool stuff. But now is also the time where people compile their worst, their least favorite movies of the year. I don't really enjoy saying bad things about movies. In general, I would say I end up liking at least 60 or 70% of everything I watch. I'm fairly easy to please. Sit me down in the theater with a big bag of popcorn and I'll be happy, pretty much no matter what. However, there were 5 movies in particular in 2025 that were really quite bad. The first film on this list is one I really wanted to be good. Every trailer had me hyped, the story seemed like it would be really interesting, and the visuals looked great. What we were given was a half-baked attempt to piggyback off of the sports industrial complex, as well as all of the goodwill Jordan Peele has managed to cultivate over the last several years. I'm of course talking about Him. Directed by Justin Tipping, Him very much looked like something I would love, or at the very least enjoy. However, I was incredibly disappointed with the way Him turned out. Like I said, the trailers for this movie made it look like a really thoughtful and creepy, kind of fun exploration of the sports industry.
I want to be the GOAT.
But ultimately, this was a complete non-starter. The film certainly tries to do some interesting things and manages to pull off a handful of memorable moments, but Him sleepwalks right past all of the juicy bits and shoots for all of the low-hanging fruit. Him has nothing really to say outside of, hey, maybe idolizing people you don't know in real life is a bad idea. I appreciate what Him was going for, and Marlon Wayans and Tyreek Withers are genuinely great as the 2 co-leads here, but man, this was a somewhat pretty, very boring dud. In contrast, the next movie on this list is one that I essentially had no faith in from the jump. It looked derivative, it looked boring, and most of all, it looked very visually dull. However, I did manage to find a tad bit of fun in Opus. Director and writer Mark Anthony Green gives us yet another worshiping people you don't know is bad story, this time centered around Alfred Moretti, a fictional musician played by John Malkovich. Moretti announces he's coming out of retirement, sending the world into a frenzy. I can't quite think of a real-world artist that I could compare Moretti to. It's a little bit unrealistic to think of a big 80s and 90s music star coming out of retirement in 2025 and dominating the world, but it did seem a little bit far-fetched for someone like this to come back and everyone freak out about it, even young people. Iowa Debris is one of the lucky few who gets an invite to hear Moretti's new album, and what do you know, she starts to think something ain't quite right in this lavishly decorated yet very remote, very sparsely populated commune. Opus has all of the familiar trappings of a Paradise Gone Wrong type film and feels very, very cliche. No thanks to the sheer abundance of movies just like this one that have released over the last few years. It makes me think of Blink Twice, Don't Blink, what was that called? Don't Blink Twice, Don't Blink. Blink Twice, what am I thinking of?
So do you think the human sacrifice is before or after dinner?
Yeah, that one. And it also reminds me of Him. The movie feels most similar to Midsummer, down to the main character being a woman, unsure of how she fits into the world, and kind of at the will of a group of people she has no relation to. She's an outsider. Performances are good, as is some of the music. You get this really cool dance sequence with Mr. Malkovich, but ultimately Opus feels very stale, and not just in the sense that you've seen these plot points and story beats before, but more like you've already watched this film. The next movie on this list might ruffle a few feathers. Is what I would say if I was confident there are more than 10 to 15 Tron fans out there. I'm kidding a little bit, but man, this does feel like a sinking enterprise from Disney. The original Tron is a very interesting movie, and while many people look back with hard eyes thanks to its visuals, which are amazing, the first Tron film is also quite fascinating on a narrative level. We all worry about being able to pay our taxes, putting food on our tables, but in the 80s you also had to worry about accidentally getting sucked into a computer.
Gonna have to put you on the game, Britt.
Games. You want games? I'll give you games.
The first Tron film is kind of this turning point for CGI and visual effects, but I think it's also interesting just to watch it from a story point. Getting sucked into a computer and turning into a digital version of yourself is a really cool thing, and while it does feel like a product of its time with technology advancing in the 80s and 90s, it still is kind of a fun idea. Tron Legacy was a legacy sequel done right, as Disney would give the digital world of Tron a sleek upgrade, complete with a more adult story and deeper characters, while also still playing into the rather goofy premise of getting sucked into a computer. This is not the case with Tron Aries. From the very beginning, it's clear that Tron Aries is not a movie for adults. This may sound silly as I'm discussing a franchise that looks like this, but I am really being serious. The original film, as well as Tron Legacy, felt goofy but adult. Tron Aries feels immature. Not only is the script filled with Marvel-esque quips and jokes, it also just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'd be willing to forgive these points if the actual film looked as good as its two older siblings, but unfortunately, Tron Aries is a big disappointment in this area too. For some reason, a lot, maybe most, of Tron Aries takes place in the real world, outside, and not in the really cool grid, which is mostly red this time around. I don't know, kinda cool. Seriously, why did this happen? Why was this the story that needed to be told in the Tron franchise? I appreciate Tron Aries' attempt to tell a fresh story and take the series into new places, but was the city of
Vancouver
really the best choice? The story is a complete mess, but that wouldn't matter if the visuals were at least fun to look at, and they just aren't. There is one super duper cool moment early on that the film never comes close to matching. The last act of Tron Aries is a joke, and one of the least exciting finales I can remember seeing in a big budget blockbuster of this scale. What happened? Look at how far we've fallen. The number 2 spot on this list goes to Death of a Unicorn. Boy, I thought him and Opus were both tired and stale, but neither hold a candle or a unicorn horn to this movie. Death of a Unicorn feels incredibly outdated. Like it's the last one left dancing at a party, but the party ended 8 years ago and it's not really dancing so much as it's barely tossing and turning, trying to keep itself from falling on the floor. I was willing to give this a shot based on the cast, which is actually pretty unique. Paul Rudd's never disappointed me. What could go wrong? Oh, okay. Well, Jenna Ortega is a pretty cool actress. What could go wrong? Oh, Will Poulter is funny. What could go wrong? Oh hey, he's still pretty funny in this. You can feel everyone try and trudge their way through this incredibly stale and joyless script, which attempts to take down those rich darn billionaires with edgy satire and quippy jokes. The only problem is it's dreadfully boring. It's bad when a movie that's not even 2 hours long feels like it's 5 hours. By the time the final act started, I was more than ready to hop on my unicorn and get the heck out of the theater. It's just uninspired, improv-esque dialogue disguising itself as some cheeky and clever takedown of the ruling class. It reminded me a lot of The Menu. Also reminded me of a slightly better, but still bad movie from this year called Mountainhead. If we're gonna keep making movies that attempt to examine wealth inequality, can we at least try and do or say something that would actually get under these people's lizard skin? That's all I ask. The last spot on my list, the movie I liked the least of the entire year, the movie that actually made me mad and affected my brain while I was watching it in the movie theater, goes to Osgood Perkins's The Monkey. Coming into this, I was already not on Osgood's good side. Unlike a lot of people, I found Longlegs to be a really sleepy, unrewarding, and uninteresting horror film. It wasn't scary, it wasn't really all that intense, and the story felt like it was taped back together after being hacked apart. This is why The Monkey seemed like a golden opportunity for Osgood to turn the other cheek, to listen to the angel or the devil on his other shoulder telling him to lean into the silliness, the goofiness of his stories and his ideas. Osgood may have gone a bit too far in a few places, as The Monkey feels like an awful alternate reality version of a Disney Channel movie. I've never felt secondhand embarrassment quite like this from a movie before, and it's mostly due to the dialogue. People talk like aliens in this movie, and nobody is likable. The Monkey masquerades as this lighthearted, goofy horror movie where you get to watch some clever mousetrap kills, but everyone in this movie is so loathsome you don't care and it's not entertaining. What's worse is that the kills in this movie aren't even cool. They're not very unique or clever, and I literally think you see all of them in the trailer. The Monkey just falls into this weird no man's land between being a dark horror comedy and a silly goosebump story. It's a really sour mix that I never want to taste again. And there you have it. Those are my least favorite films of 2025. Overall, it was a pretty amazing year. Like I said, I think 2025 was a great year for film. I really don't like talking negatively about movies. I tend to like mostly everything that I see. Like I always said, a bad day at the movie theater is better than a good day not at the movie theater. I go into a movie, see it on the big screen, and I'm always going to feel better. It's always going to kind of make my day better, even if I don't like the movie that much. But yeah, these are just movies that I found to be quite bad and I'm not going to watch again. Let's make only good movies in 2026. Let's make only movies that are good. I think we can do it, right?
Impressive.
Maybe not. All right, bye.